Uh, okay, so Dylan Cummings here for Rollt.Magazin, here with Abby Dunkin. Abby, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Been really busy, but I'm good. So, for those of you that don't know, Abby started playing wheelchair basketball in 2013. She then went to UTA and graduated there. I believe it was last year. So,
Yep.
and then, whilst at UTA, she made it onto the USA women's squad and making her debut at the 2015 Pan Am Games, where she won gold, and then the following year she won gold at the Rio 2016 Paralympics. Um, Earlier this year, she decided to retire from the sport, and she pulled out of the classification reassessment process. So we're here to talk to Abby about that here today. So Abby, first question I've got for you is, what are you doing just now, and what have you got planned for the future?
Well, right now I am packing. I'm actually moving in 3 days from Fort Worth to Cary, North Carolina, to seek out some different opportunities out there. So that's kind of what's going on here, and just kind of going with the flow and seeing what new opportunities kind of lie ahead.
Yeah, and you say you're going to move to North Carolina. What sort of opportunities are you uh, looking for? Are you able to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so right actually before the pandemic hit, I got my license in personal training. So I'm a certified personal trainer. So there's a few gyms out in the area that do work with people with spinal cord injuries and other disabilities to hopefully walk again. And so I'm hoping to get in with that. I'm supposed to talk with them once I get there. So we'll see if something comes from that, which would be awesome.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds like you've planned out for what's next. So yeah,
Trying to.
that sounds like a really good opportunity to
Mhm.
help people with spinal cord injuries. Just following on from that, obviously we've been doing a lot of coverage on the IPC classification
Mhm.
situation. How do you feel about that situation, and why do you feel that certain way?
It's absolutely heartbreaking. Not just for the players that have been deemed ineligible, for their teammates, for their coaching staff. I mean, you put so much time and effort, and you sacrifice so many personal commitments to play at the Paralympic Games, which is like the height of the sport. That's where every athlete has their dreams to go compete and represent their respected country. And so to have that taken away and see your teammates have that taken away, and it's just kind of punch in the gut, and seeing all these other athletes that have spent so much time, like David Ng, years and years in the sport, and has been a great spokesman person for the sport as well. Just kind of have his last Paralympic Games kind of ripped from him, and is just like Annabelle Lindsay trying to get to her first Paralympic Games, and so many other athletes. It's really sad to see the IPC make disability such a black and white thing when it's not. And so, like I said, it's really heartbreaking to see that.
Yeah, and I think the majority of the wheelchair basketball community would agree with you on that. And now, I presume that you've seen my interview with Annabelle Lindsay. In that
Mm-hmm.
interview, she did mention you, and she mentioned how, in her opinion, the reason you sort of retired from the sport was to sort of, you didn't want to be told by the IPC this decision, that you sort of wanted to just go out on your own terms. Can you confirm or deny that?
I can totally confirm that. So once the story about Annabelle came out, I reached out to her to let her know I was there and that I totally understood the hurt, the anger, the sadness, the disappointment that she was feeling. But I did mention to her that for my retirement, I want to have control over it. I didn't want the federation that saw disability as a black and white thing to tell me what I can and can't do. And so I knew with this classification process, even though it was directed at the 4s and 4.5s, having CRPS, it was going to hurt me later down the road. And I didn't want to waste resources that my team was going to use. For example, I didn't want the coaching staff to waste time on me when they should be focusing on the players that are eligible, that the IPC sees that are eligible. I didn't want our nutritionist and strength conditioning coach to focus on me when I was going to be deemed ineligible at either point. So for me, I wanted to go my own, but I also wanted to do it for the best of the team and not waste any more resources or time when I knew that that was going to come at some point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's that's a very honest and unselfish viewpoint to take it from. Like you say, like you'd rather them focus on the players that are eligible.
Mhm.
However, some would say that this, because you were a 3-5, that this ruling wouldn't affect you till post Tokyo. So some
Mhm.
would say that you still would have had that opportunity to participate in Tokyo, and some would be as confused as to why you chose not to take that opportunity.
I could totally understand why there'd be confusion. I think for me at this point, and also because my health is really good right now. I just didn't see myself going forward with it, and that has to do with the pandemic and thinking of it as like, this is another year. This is another year where I'm trying to find a career. I'm out of college. I need to kind of work in my professional life, and basketball in a way kind of kept me from doing that. And so I think this is the best choice for me. It's kind of a point where you get to that point in your career where you have to focus like on me and what is best for me. Because if I can't be my best for me, then I cannot be my best for the team. So that was another reason why I decided to step out early.
Yeah, and you say that now your health is really good now. I presume that you're talking about your mental health. Is that correct?
Yeah, both physical and mental. Yeah. So, I mean, deciding to retire was not easy. I mean, I was locked in my room for 12 hours a day, just an emotional ball of mess, thinking of what did I just do? So that transition from athlete to whatever it is next is definitely hard. And that was one of the things that quite a few people have kind of prepared me for, say, hey, listen, this is not going to be easy. But especially in a pandemic and what we're going through here now is a lot harder than I would have imagined. Um, but I think as time goes on, it gets easier. And so, I mean, I can't say that I don't regret my decision, because I don't. But I really do hope that the team going forward is as successful as it can be.
Yeah, definitely. And like after you made that decision, it did weigh heavily on you. But do you feel that now that you've made it, a weight's been lifted off your shoulders almost?
Huge relief. So this has been weighing on me for quite a few months prior to the decision. And so it was a huge relief off my shoulders, kind of a sigh of relief, but also kind of like it was definitely sad, kind of leaving that chunk behind. But I mean, I can't be too upset about it. I had a great run, great team, and a great staff. So I can only be thankful for the opportunities it presented me.
Yeah, and obviously you made some great friends, both at
Mm-hmm.
UTA and in the national team, like you say, Annabelle Lindsay was one of your good friends, Rose Holloman as well also. But
Mm-hmm.
controversial question here: was there any animosity between yourself and your national team coaches?
I don't think so. I hope not. I've kept in contact with a few of our staff, just kind of, hey, how's it going? But that's about it. Everyone was very respectful of my decision and supported me. And so they responded very respectfully and were very supportive.
And just following on to my next question about the going back to the IPC code, what's your opinion on the IPC's definition of disabilities? Like, do you think a wider range of disabilities should be added to their code? And like you say, like, why should it not just be black and white?
It definitely shouldn't be black and white. Disability, there's a huge diverse origin of disability. You can't just say, oh, I mean, there you have the medical model of disability and the social model of disability. And so it's really just how you look at it. And it seems like it's just really hard to say. But I do think that the IPC should widen their code and look at the new scientific data that's out there, such as CRPS. And that's what I have. And that's why I also thought I would be deemed ineligible, because I do have CRPS. But look at the scientific data, look at the studies, look at the research, and look at these doctors and other people that do have CRPS. It just seems that they're very focused on what they have in front of them, and not willing to look outside their box or try to understand, at least, even if they might not agree with it, just kind of acknowledge that, hey, this is out there. Why don't we look at that? I think the sport, I mean, they promote the sport to be inclusive, but yet put guidelines on what you should and shouldn't be. things are just not black and white. That's just how life is. And so it goes for many things. Yeah, it's just really heartbreaking to see this. So I really do hope in the future that they're able to come to a collaborative conclusion and be inclusive, like as Pat Anderson has been promoting. If you can sit in a chair, you can play. You're at the same playing level field. And so I really do hope that they look at this further and open up the sport, because I feel like if they put more guidelines on the sport, you're not going to have many players, and you're going to make the sport smaller and smaller and smaller, and you're not going to be able to grow the sport at all.
Yeah, and it's very much as if like the IPC are acknowledging that people have these impairments, but it's very much as if they don't fit into their category.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. The line is drawn. However, like some would say that for a tournament like the Paralympics, the line needs to be drawn somewhere. So that it's just a case of where the line is now. Some don't agree with it. So what would you say to that?
It's hard for me to say. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I don't know every single disability. I think like you said, I think the biggest thing right now is finding where that line is. It seems like right now the line is kind of set in stone. May be a little blurred at times, but I think everyone's just trying to figure out where that line is and what is eligible and what is not eligible. And I think that's where the IPC really has to, like I said, look at the data, look at these different players that have done so much for the sport, and look at these different disabilities. So I really hope that they change some of their ways.
Yeah, and you say it there at the end that you hope they change some of their ways. If you were in the IPC position, how would you change the ways?
I would just be open-minded. Be open-minded to the thought of having what in their eyes might be a different disability or an ineligible disability play the sport. Look at your athletes. Stop looking at pieces of paper and look at your athletes. I mean, these paper numbers aren't going to tell you so much, but if you can look at the athletes, talk with the athletes, get their views and perspectives on different things, it can enlighten them, hopefully, to look down a different path or a different road or a different way of thinking. So I would really just encourage IPC just to be open-minded. Even though they might not agree with certain things up front, they would just acknowledge and learn and see with their own eyes and think. And yeah, so I really hope they keep an open mind.
Yeah, okay. And this brings me on to my next question. So the IPC classification code has been agreed upon by over 200 Paralympic sports governing bodies. Why do you think the code has been so universally agreed upon by several other Paralympic sports?
I think also, I mean, it's 2020. There's so much more coming out now. There's new technology. There is new research. There's new articles. There's new studies. I think as the times are changing, it's time to look into more diverse disabilities, more just diverse people in general, and just see what's out there. And so I think I really don't know the total details of when the guidelines were agreed upon or how long ago, if it was recent. But just I would encourage them just to keep on track of the new research and all the disabilities coming to light. Yeah.
Okay, and yeah, like you say, and this is where I think the majority of the wheelchair basketball community would agree with you, is the fact that there's so much many new disabilities come to light, like just recently. So yeah, it's sort of the Paralympic Games being sort of the pinnacle of like disability sport. Then they should really be on. Some would agree with you that they should really be on top of the new evidence coming to light. That brings me on to my next question. Now, excuse me, this is quite a long-winded one, so I'll have to look down at my phone. But there's no denying that certain health conditions can lead to permanent physical impairment. However, other conditions may not affect people in that way. So, for example, certainly in the UK, CRPS is listed as a health condition. However, CRPS can, in your case, it can lead to like an impairment of you not being able to walk. However, other people that have different health conditions that are not CRPS they might not have a physical impairment. So what I'm saying is this is very much a specific case by case basis. So in your opinion, why should the IPC at least take into consideration the health conditions that can cause permanent physical impairment?
It's definitely like with CRPS, it's definitely case by case, person by person. CRPS shows up in so many different ways and so many people because people react so differently to different things. I think they should definitely look at it. Each person, like I said, reacts differently. Just look at it. You don't have to agree with it for now, but just look at it, read the data, see what's there, look at the medical records. I mean, like I said, I just hope they keep an open mind and just look at it. And then it might change your mind. Meet the people that have these conditions. Meet the athletes that go through this day in and day out. For somebody with CRPS, might be able to run and walk normally. That's great. And then you have somebody with CRPS that had to have an amputation to alleviate the chronic pain. But yet, even with CRPS, amputation is not always the key because that can also make it worse. And so it's, like I said, it's a case by case, day by day, person by person type thing. And so I think as long as the IPC is just open and willing to listen, I think it's the biggest thing right now is that athletes and staff and different teams are just not feeling like they're being heard. And so when you don't feel like you're being heard, that's when people start to get frustrated. And so I would just encourage IPC just to listen.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like, one of the guys I've interviewed before, he said that he would get all the athletes that have been affected into a room with the head of the IPC, and he would make the IPC listen, or get the IPC to listen to their stories and how wheelchair basketball has saved their life, and stuff like that. And then potentially the IPC would change their mind. But this leads me on to my final question that I've got for you. So if you had the chance to speak to the head of the IPC face to face, first of all, what would you say to them, and how would you put forward an argument to get them to consider changing their classification code?
If I had the chance, I would definitely bring in every athlete that would be willing to speak. I mean, it's one thing for one person to go up there and try to argue their viewpoints and bring all this evidence and data, but it's also another thing for a whole group of athletes around the globe to do that. And so I think just bringing in everybody's different stories and perspectives, and like you said, the athlete wanted to bring in how wheelchair basketball has saved their life. And so I think it's one thing, like I said, it's one thing to look at a piece of paper and deem somebody's future on a single piece of paper. But when you meet the athletes, you hear their stories and you hear from their doctors, you look at the data, you look at the numbers, with everything put together, then make the best choice that you think is right for the sport of wheelchair basketball and the Paralympic Games moving forward. But I don't base your decisions off a piece of paper. That's something that when they look at that piece of paper and just look at these numbers, they're not seeing that this is somebody's livelihood, that they're not seeing that this is it could be somebody's life or death. This is somebody's income. This is somebody's way of taking care of their families. This is somebody's career. So it's more than just their disability. This is their entire life. And sometimes it feels like the IPC just isn't seeing that all the way through.
Yeah, definitely. And I think again that's where a lot of the community would agree with you on that. And then just a follow-up question: if this code was to be altered or changed slightly so that CRPS would be considered an eligible impairment, would we see Abby Dunkin again in a USA vest?
It's such a good question. At this point, most likely not. It's another thing with being, especially in the States, being a Paralympic, even an Olympic athlete, is that this is the pay is just not great. They tell us to train like Olympians, but a lot of Paralympians don't have big sponsorships and big amount of income coming, so I can't depend my life on basketball. I need to look at past the game, past the 10-foot tall baskets, past the 90-foot of hardwood floor, past the buzzards, and look at life in general, kind of past basketball. But I would love to stay involved somehow, whether it's training or whatever opportunities come arise. So we'll see what happens. But in Jersey, probably not.
Okay, well, Abby, that's all the questions I've got for you today, but are there any final thoughts you'd like to add?
I tell those athletes, just keep fighting. Keep training like you're going to Tokyo tomorrow. Keep in contact with your teammates, and that there's going to be a light at the end of this tunnel. And it's going to suck right now. It's probably going to suck for a little bit longer. But I think everybody is going to make it through just fine.
All right, Abby. Well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you doing this, and good luck with your move to North Carolina and with your new job, your new opportunity. So, wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And yeah, Rollt will keep in contact with you in the future. And if you ever want to speak about this again, just let us know. But thank you very much, Abby.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good one.